Hey, I'm Jonny May from pianowithjonny.com, and today I want to show you how I arranged Despacito and my arrangement process. And I want to walk you through my process when I take a pop song, or really any song, and create an arrangement out of it. This is going to be a sort of broad overview of the steps that I take, and we're not going to get too deep into the theory, but I want to show you my steps so hopefully you can take a song that you really like and you can also arrange it. So this is going to be kind of a short lesson. We're not going to get too deep into the theory, but you're going to really get to see my process. So what I do first is I create a lead sheet, which is basically your melody and your chords. And you can see the sheet music up here on the top left, and you're going to notice there's a melody there and there are chords. And the reason I create this lead sheet first is because your melody and your chords are your most fundamental elements of a song. Once you have your melody and your chords, then you can start to do really fun stuff with it. So I listen to the melody and I notate the melody. I use a program called Sibelius, but you could also do this by hand. You could notate the melody. So I do this for all the sections. So we have the verse, of course, first part. Then we have this little pre-chorus section, and then I notate the chorus. Okay? Now you're going to notice here when we get to page 2, after the chorus, it's all white. There's nothing left to write. And the reason I do it like this is because usually in pop music, the verse and the pre-chorus and the chorus repeat themselves. And rather than notating the whole song, once I've notated the verse, that melody is going to repeat later. Or usually in pop music, the melody is very similar. And so even if the melody changes on the second verse, I still will use the melody from the first verse because they're so similar. So this is something I encourage all of my students to do. If you're arranging a song, is simplify the process by only notating each section one time. The other thing I do is I'll simplify the melody. And it's very common in pop music for the singer to do these little riffs over the melody, where they'll sing something like right? And they're singing really fast on a couple notes. And that sounds great, but when you're arranging something for piano, you want to have a simple melody to then arrange in a more complex way. And so what I'll do is I will take a melody like that and I'll simplify it to something like, or, right? Maybe only 3 notes rather than, right? And that really helps with the arrangement process. So this is something I encourage you to do as you're arranging. Okay. So we have our sections down, we have our melody, we have our chords. Let's play a little bit of it here. Here's how the verse sounds. These are just root position chords. Okay, I'm just playing the straight melody and chords. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay. So how do we then take this and turn it into a Latin arrangement? Well, the first question that you have to address is, what style do I want to arrange this in? Am I going to do it in a ragtime style or a boogie style? Because each of these styles has certain techniques that you're going to use for each hand. Like in ragtime, you have the stride left hand and you have rag rolls. Okay? Or boogie, you might have something like this. Okay? So I wanted to do this in a Latin style. Now there's many sub-genres of Latin music. You have salsa, and you have tango, and you have samba, right? And I didn't want to make a purist arrangement. I didn't want to do a strictly tango arrangement. I wanted to sort of infuse different elements of Latin music. So first question for me was, well, what kind of bass line do I want to use? And there's a very simple Latin bass line where you take the chord and you break it up into individual notes, right? So in the case of C minor, our first chord, you could do this in your left hand. You hear that? It's a cool Latin bass line. You can use this on many, many different songs, and all I'm doing is taking the chord and breaking it up into this very simple pattern: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and I tested it with the melody and it worked great. Check it out. Sounds great. 3, 4, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, okay? So once I figured that out, or once you figure something like that out, you're one step into arranging, and that's a very big step. The other important part is the right hand groove, and I call this a chordal groove. And the basic idea is that there is a groove that drives every song. In ragtime music, it's the stride left hand with the rag rolls. In Latin music, it's very typical to have a montuno pattern in your right hand, and a montuno is a repeated line. There's lots of different montunos, but the one I really like that actually works really well with this left hand goes like this. Okay? And I'm taking my C minor chord, okay, with the G on the outside, C and E flat in the middle, and I'm going outer, inner, okay? And that's the basic idea. And that's the pattern. You can add the left hand. And I just kept practicing that until that groove was really solid. And that is a cool Latin groove. And so what this ends up becoming is my sort of drive, the groove that drives the song. I call it a chordal groove, or a chord groove. And so the goal as an arranger is to mix the melody in with your chordal groove. You got to find a way to make it all work together, okay? So I came up with this groove and I realized, well, I can do this pattern on all the chords. That's my A flat chord, and then I go to E flat, B flat, okay? And you can do this pattern on all the chords, and that's something that you can practice, okay? And then I had some fun with it. You can use chromaticism. You can do that little walk down into your notes. You can start adding little fun things to your arrangement. So that became my introduction. Now, what about the verse, okay? How did I take this melody and also play this montuno pattern with it? And so the trick here is to take your melody and play it in octaves. If you recall, the montuno is octaves on the outside. That's a G octave. And so what you can do is make the outer notes of your montuno your melody. Okay? And so here we've got a C melody, right? C, ba da 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 dum dum dum. And I'm playing the melody in octaves, and then in the middle of the octaves, I use that montuno pattern. Check it out. There it is. That's that montuno pattern. And what you want to do is you play your melody in octaves like I just did, and then anytime the melody is being held out, see how this note's being held out here? That's where you throw in that chordal groove, okay? Same thing here in the B flat. See how this D is being held out? And I've got the melody on the D, and I've got the internal notes in the middle. So that's kind of the formula for how I arrange sections of the song. I first think, okay, what's the style I want to play? What is the underlying chordal groove that's going to drive the song? And then once I have that, it just becomes a matter of, okay, how do I incorporate this melody, okay? And there's some little tricks you can do. Like I start off, those are just single notes. Because that's hard to play in octaves. That's a lot of jumping. And then octaves, those are just single note octaves or single octaves. And what I'll do, sometimes I'll throw little chord pops in there. So you can do stuff like that. That chord pop actually comes from your montuno. Okay. Now, when you're arranging, you want to develop your sections. So this sounds great. This is a cool groove, and I could play this groove the entire song and it would sound really cool. But that'll get boring after a while. And the listener, every time you introduce a new section, generally you want to change something up, right? You want to give the ear something new to enjoy. And so what I did on the pre-chorus is I wanted the sound to be a little bigger. And so I said, well, what if I took this calypso left-hand pattern, this little broken pattern, and what if I went to the chord, instead of going, you know, single note, what if I went like this? Okay? And this is a C minor chord, and basically I'm going root, chord, that's a first inversion C minor, and then I go to the fifth of the root, which is G. Okay, and you can do this for all the chords. See how that works? So anytime the chord changes, you go 5 to 1. And so when I introduce this, now you get a little bit bigger sound, and it sort of boosts the sound. Check it out. Up. Melody is still pretty much playing octaves, but now we get that bigger sound in the left hand, and that is a very effective technique. So again, all I did is I took that calypso left hand, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and I used the same rhythm, but I just went to a chord. Root, chord, root, chord, bum, 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 root, chord, chord. So it's the same technique, okay? So I do that on the pre-chorus, which sounds great. Also, you can do little fills here. See on this B flat chord here, see this big gap here? This is so great as an arranger. You want to look for these gaps, because when you have a gap, that's where you can throw in some really fun stuff. And so here I use this little run. Let's see. And basically what I did there is I just arpeggiated a B flat chord down the piano, up, and that's just a pattern I really like, but you could do any pattern you want. You could go, you could come all the way down the piano, but the point being, you want to look for these gaps so you can throw in little fills. When I was studying arranging when I was a teenager, my teacher used to call this ornamentation, right? If you think of a Christmas tree, put ornaments on it just to make it sparkle and look fun, and that's what we're doing here. So look for those gaps, and you can throw in little fills, usually arpeggiating the chord. Okay, so we play along this section basically the same technique. We got the root going to the chord, and I'll actually play this section for you. You'll notice in the melodies, most of the time I use octaves, but sometimes I use single notes because, again, if you're using octaves on all of the notes, there's a lot of jumping, okay? So you can kind of be selective about which notes to play as octaves. One of the goals as a pianist is making your job easy, okay? And so look for opportunities where you can go to single notes. Okay? Now, when we get to the end of this phrase, we're going to set up the chorus, and it's, you know, so for the chorus, what I do here is I actually go back to my calypso pattern in the left hand, but I want to make it sound big, right? Because we're building up to the chorus, and we've had the verse, which was very interesting. We have the calypso pattern with the montunos, the pre-chorus, right? We've got the root going to the chord. I'm going to go back to the calypso pattern, but I'm going to do it in octaves, okay? And it's going to give it a really big sound, right? I'm just breaking up the chord using octaves. So we're using the same technique that we used earlier. And then the right hand, what I wanted to do is I wanted to take this melody and somehow incorporate that montuno, because that montuno is so essential in so much Latin music. And I realized the montuno pattern goes like this. Right? Well, that's a very specific pattern, and this is a very busy melody. Look at the melody. It's a really busy melody. And so how on earth can I take that busy melody and mix it with the montuno pattern, which is fairly open, right? Once again, your montuno pattern is a pretty open melody. And again, the melody's on the outside, so you're not playing that C very often. And so what I did, here's kind of the trick, is I took this melody and I simplified it. And I said, okay, look at this melody. We have C going down to G, and then the melody goes back up to C, and then it goes B flat C, okay? That's a basic outline of your melody. Once again, C, G, and then G, C, B flat, C, A flat, okay? So now that I have this very simple melody, I can incorporate the montunos. Check it out. You see how that works? So we're going C, G, C, C, B flat, C, A flat, okay? And now I'm able to incorporate that montuno line and throw those little pops in the middle. And what ends up happening is I'm not playing, the melody, right? The melody's very busy and he's singing all these words, but the listener, when they're listening to this piano arrangement, they're still having the same impression. They're still hearing all of those notes that the singer's saying, but you're not playing all of them. So this is a trick I like to use a lot in the arrangement. I don't play every single note that the singer's saying. I'll sort of outline the melody and I'll put the chordal groove on it, and the audience still hears the original melody. So again, simplify the music as much as possible, and that will allow you to arrange it in a very interesting style, in this case a Latin style. Okay, so let's walk through the chorus here. So we've got the jumpy left hand calypso. I'm using the same montuno pattern. I'm just jumping around to outline the melody, and I'm using the corresponding chord. That's a C minor. It's an A flat. I'm just using inversions of an A flat. See these inversions here? Okay. Up to our E flat chord. I throw my fill in there. But you could do any fill you want. You could do, something in a different inversion, or you can do, something like that. You could play like a scale going down the piano. Lots of different options there. But again, look for the gaps. We've got a nice gap here. That's a great place to throw your fill in. Then we repeat the melody, right? Be right here on this B flat, and then we get into this little second section here of the chorus. We're still in the chorus, but it changes, and the melody jumps into this high octave, right? And what I wanted to do here was I really wanted to build it. I wanted to get really, really big, right? And right now what we're already playing is fairly big, but what's an even bigger sound is to go root chord. Root chord in the left hand, it just creates a really big sound on the piano. And right now we're using octaves on that calypso pattern. So I'm going to go to my root chord thing. And this time I'm going to change my right hand pattern. I've been using montunos the whole time, but now I'm going to come up with a new pattern that still basically outlines this melody, okay? And the pattern I came up with is this. Fairly simple pattern when you break it down. So I'm going like, it's a C minor chord, see this? And I'm going, that's it, that's the pattern, okay? Left hand's going root, chord, 5, 1, chord, okay? And I came up with this pattern. I just was thinking, gosh, what would be a cool sort of rhythmic pattern? Again, a chordal groove for the right hand, and I really like this, okay? So, that's a cool little rhythm, but gosh, how am I going to make it work with this melody? Look at this melody. It's a busy melody. So what did I do? I simplified it, okay? And so you can take this melody and go, okay, well, what's happening here? We're going G, F, G, F, A flat, right? That's your basic melody. Okay, once more. Okay, and then we've got these A flats here. And then the next part, which is going to be down here. Okay, so how did I incorporate that with this little groove? We'll check it out. You see what I'm doing? So I'm taking this melody, I'm putting it on the outside, okay? So my outer fingers are playing the melody, and then I just do that little roll in the middle. There's my F, and then A flat, okay? Here's our chords in the left hand, C minor, now the A flat chord, this is going to be our E flat major, and basically again I'm just filling the inner notes of the chord. The melody is in A flat, the inner notes are B flat and E flat, right? Here I go to sort of a E flat over B flat to our B flat major. This is like a suspended B flat major chord. You could have also gone, okay? And then I'll add some fun stuff. I think in the arrangement I went, and that's just basically a walk up. This is like a B diminished, which is a very nice leading chord, to a C minor. Okay, you can throw stuff in like this. Again, we're just sort of adding some interesting elements here. But in terms of this section, how did I arrange it? Well, again, you want to think about how you want the arrangement to grow. I wanted a really big sound, so I went back to the left hand jumping to the chords. Right hand, I came up with this little roll pattern. And then I simplified the melody. Gotta simplify your melody so that it would fit with that particular roll, and I made it work with that roll. Okay, so let's go ahead and play through this section. So here's what we have. Okay, here we go. B diminished, C minor, so this concludes our lesson on how I arranged Despacito. If you want to learn more about how to arrange in Latin styles and you want to learn more of my techniques in more detail, I've created full-length courses for you at pianowithjonny.com. In fact, you're looking here at the roadmap to success. This is what you would see as a member at Piano with Jonny, and we've laid out courses for you that get progressively more challenging. And this is the Latin jazz roadmap. So we start off with sugar cubes. You learn this really fun Cuban groove. How to solo over it, how to harmonize the melody, all kinds of really cool tricks. Then you learn about Latin jazz soloing, and you learn about different riffs you can use, single note riffs, double note riffs, syncopations, ostinatos, flashy runs down the piano, all in the context of Latin music. So a lot of really great stuff at pianowithjonny.com. And I also have lots of other courses in other styles like jazz, blues, pop, rock, boogie, swing, Latin here, many styles, so be sure to check that out as well. And thanks for watching.